Welcome to the More Life Podcast, where creatives, problem solvers, and entrepreneurs talk about squeezing more out and finding meaning in this crazy thing we call life. Let's dive in. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the More Life Podcast. I'm your host, Bart Edison, and today we have a very special guest today with us. It's Erika Flores, a Toronto-based illustrator and calligrapher, a multimedia artist from Toronto with a modern and minimalist style. And, she's always looking for ways to experiment creatively. Erika is best known for her line art used on a variety of mediums such as acrylic glass paintings, digital illustrations, and engravings, and often showcasing her artwork through a unique blend of spoken word poetry and video. Her work has been featured on multiple media outlets and brands such as Indigo, Canada's Basketball, CBC Toronto, City TV's The Social, and BuzzFeed. Erika, say what's up to everybody, please.
Hey everyone, and thanks so much, Bart, for such a wonderful introduction. I always have an issue kind of introducing myself, and you did that so nicely. So thank you so much for that. But look forward to
you have a lot of things. You have a lot of things inside of your introduction that you've done and that you do. When you normally meet somebody, what do you say? You just say I'm an artist?
Yeah, pretty much. Say I'm a Toronto-based illustrator, calligrapher. And yeah, I feel weird kind of listing out, because people ask me oh, where might have seen you in, or what have you done? And I feel just kind of awkward just saying oh yeah, I was doing this and Indigo or whatever, BuzzFeed. And yeah, it just feels like I obviously write it on my website and I forget that I do that. So hearing you say that is it's weird.
And what about the artistry of everything? I'm assuming this starts at a young age. Is this something that you were doing when you were really young, or something you picked up when you were older?
I've always been into art since I was younger. So since I was elementary, I remember literally during recess, me and a couple of friends, we would just do drawings on the floor during recess. And weird enough, we were trying to sell them not with money, but with candy or something, some sort of currency that you would use in elementary school. But yeah, since I was really young, I've just always been drawn to art. But as I grew older, I just kind of as I did my schooling, my education, I geared towards more sciences and looking towards a different type of career. I've never really seen myself doing a career in art. So if about my education and all that, it's totally different from what I'm doing right now. I actually did my degree was in neurobiology and genetics.
Really?
Yeah, that's my bachelor's, and my master's was developmental psychology, which is totally different from what I'm doing now. But and when I tell people that this is my side hustle, and when I tell them what my full-time job is, they're just well, how did that even happen? But yeah.
So how does that happen? Because did you ever have that, that kind of passion of I want to make this my living? Or was this almost no, this is more or less for me. I don't really see this as my profession or my vocation. This is something I do just to help me process or help me relax and chill or express myself.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I mentioned I've always really been geared towards art and creativity. And before I even started this side hustle, before I started Inkscript, people would ask me oh, would you ever sell your artwork, or would you ever try to make this a living? And it was just some conversation I have with friends, and I would always respond with I don't want to make my creation or my passion into a commodity. I've always said that. And it's funny because now I'm actually selling my work and my services and my art. So you just never know where you're going to, where your future is headed to, or where your kind of your life course is headed to. But I guess it all began when I actually helped my my friend who was getting married like back in like 2018, and she was trying to do like this like like Pinterest worthy like seating chart thing, and she asked me, like, she's like, oh, you're the one with the nicest handwriting, like will you help me with like the calligraphy on this? And that back then, like, I didn't really know too much about calligraphy. I literally had to like Google and kind of like watch YouTube tutorials on like what she wanted to do and learn how to do like a seating chart. There's a lot that comes into it, and so I did that for her. And then I realized that like during my research while doing that for her, that there was this whole kind of industry out there and this whole career with calligraphy out there. Yeah. And I didn't know about that. And Instagram is just like a plethora. There's like a plethora of like resources out there, but I decided to just make like an Instagram just to kind of like document kind of like my progress and, just post like my artwork and just do it for fun. And then that's when people started kind of like noticing my work as I was posting it more and asking me if I offer it as like a product or service. Yeah, and I guess it was just born out of that. Yeah.
For those people that don't know, what's calligraphy?
Yeah, so calligraphy, it's a lot of people say it's like fancy handwriting or like pretty handwriting, but I would argue that it's not. It's actually like a form of art, and many like calligraphers would agree with that, because writing, like it comes kind of naturally, but with calligraphy, there's like stroke patterns. Yeah, and there's like stroke patterns. So like the downstroke is usually like thicker than like the upward stroke. So there's just like an art to it. And you can create like even different kinds of art forms with calligraphy. So it's basically is like lettering, but like a more artistic and creative way of, like doing lettering in some sort of way.
And people are evolving in that space, right? Like people are finding out new ways of doing things or new applications to use calligraphy and how to mix it in with different types of media and different types of art. So you're like a multifaceted artist. So what are the mediums that you're most comfortable in? You talk about being an illustrator, you talk about using multimedia, you talk about calligraphy. What are the things that are, I guess, the truest form of your art craft?
Um, so the most like the one I most commonly do and that like people tend to kind of hire me for, I would say, are both digital and the acrylic like line art. So the acrylic glass kind of plexiglass kind of paintings that I do, where I do like the line art drawings on it. And those are two that I also feel like the most like comfortable like doing, and like I have the most fun doing, like just painting on like the glass surfaces or painting on like other different kinds of surfaces, and also doing like digital, like illustrations and digital like calligraphy as well. Like recently, like I guess in the last like 2 or so years, I started doing more like engraving, so on like glass or like ceramic or stone. And I used to only do like calligraphy, but if you notice, like you'll probably notice on like my Instagram and some of my other platforms that I've been doing much more like illustration lately, which was actually like my first love and what I used to do when I was younger. And I decided to experiment with that because I really like experimenting with different mediums and different surfaces. So I started doing like engravings, like engraved illustrations actually. So that one I found that a little bit more laborsome, but it's like it's such a fun and such a unique different art form that I'm still like exploring and discovering.
Your artwork, and we're going to link all of her social media platforms so you can see her art. And you really should check it out because it's really cool and such a unique vibe. Like you have a very strong or present overarching theme. It's like floral, botanical, but not in the way that you think. It has a very warm texture to it. There's lots of taupes and browns. There's lots of greens, but in a different way that you don't necessarily see. What are some of the inspirations that you kind of pull from to find a style like this? Is this something that you kind of have evolved along the way that you're like, okay, this is more comfortable for me in how I want to present these ideas or concepts?
Yeah, that's actually such a good question. Because I use color very often in my work to kind of portray like an emotion or to kind of evoke an emotion or a feeling in my work. So I'm really glad that you said that because I think it's working if you notice that. So thank you for noticing that. But in terms of the kind of like the style and kind of like the the style of work that I do, in the beginning when I was, as I mentioned, like I started off with an Instagram and I was kind of exploring the industry. And when I realized I wanted to make this into not just, just artwork, but into like a brand, into a business, uh, I was, like I was looking at inspiration from like other artists out there. And I noticed that especially in the calligraphy industry, there's a lot of, people in the wedding industry. So a lot of people in the wedding industry, just because of the nature of the industry, like the type of like the themes and the thematic kind of artwork out there is usually like more like whimsical, more like neutral, kind of softer palettes and tones. So if you keep scrolling down my view, you'll probably notice like it just gets lighter and lighter and probably paler and paler and more pastel. That's because back then, I thought that maybe like if I wanted to get in the industry, it would attract more, like clients that way or maybe people that way. And then as I grew in as a person and as an artist, I started realizing what I wanted to do and kind of like what I felt reflects me and felt more like me. And I always loved like color and the use of like color theory and kind of evoking like certain emotions and feelings in people using color. So I was like, you know what, like I shouldn't like, fit into a mold, which by the way, like I'm not saying anything bad about like that kind of theme. Like it totally works for other people. I just didn't feel like it was like for me. So I was, trying to think of what is like more me. So I thought of, like what kind of feelings that I want to portray in people. I want when people to look at my artwork, how I feel when I look at like a sunset. So that's why I always say like I use a sunset palette and a sunset color palette because like one of yeah, and it was like some of like my best memories and the warmest memories have always been during like sunset or like sunrise where I just think about like just like the warmest memories and kind of like nostalgia. And I wanted those feelings to be portrayed and reflected in my artwork. So that's why I lean toward, especially now and like, evolving throughout my artistic style, I was leaning towards more like earthy tones, more like warm tones, using a lot of natural light in my like kind of content, like photography. Yeah, just kind of like evoking those like feelings in people and hopefully like that is reflected in my artwork. And that's why I'm glad that you said that.
You nailed it on the head because without I was using other words because I didn't know what word to use, but sunset color palette is exactly it. It has this tone towards it, towards even the way that you use the lines to emphasize certain parts of the artwork. It almost feels as if it has this warm, I don't know how, like it's a warm energy about it. Again, you have to check out the links in the description afterwards to understand what we're talking about. Otherwise, we're gonna sound like two crazy people just sitting here talking about
just talking about warm
war paper. Yeah,
trying to bring warmth into
but
Toronto.
exactly, we need it. We need it right now. But I think I think only one part of what makes I think your art really unique and special, at least to me, anyways, as somebody who loves creativity and art, is gonna. The other side of it is your storytelling ability. There's one thing to have a great style, but what do you do with that? What do you say with that style? That having a good style is maybe having a language, but you have to choose which words you want to say or what you want to speak to. And I think you choose really cool and unique things to speak to. It's especially on your Instagram bio page where you see some of the art that you're working with. It's meaningful. It has, I guess, that poetry, storytelling, writing aspect that you say that you practice, that you love so much and as a passion. It really comes through in the artwork because you can tell that this is not just um, a picture that was produced by somebody who has a very special skill. It's something that is like almost like a vignette. It's a one frame of a story, and it leads you to believe that there's more to the story that could be shared, but you've selected one portion of it to share with us, and then you maybe sometimes add some descriptors. Even the more recent one that you posted of Pascal Siakam, and there's almost like a frames by frame showing different aspects of his quote unquote game, but also the journey it takes to get to where he is now. And you can see an evolution between the words and also where those words are placed on his body or on the frame of the art piece. So I kind of all ties it all together. So storytelling is one of those things where either you understand it or you don't understand it. And I'd love to hear how you come through that process of like finding something that means something to you, converting it into a still piece that can still speak volumes.
Mm-hmm. Wow, like I can tell, like you told me that you enjoy art, and I can tell that you have a creative eye too. Like the fact that you notice all that, like that's you're so detail oriented. So yeah, I appreciate you kind of like translating that into words for me, because like it's hard for me to kind of express what I'm trying to do, and you actually nailed that.
Right.
So thank you so much for that. I'm gonna refer to this podcast if people ask me like why I randomly put like words and
Right,
like the
right, right,
pros
right,
and stuff.
right.
Yeah,
You
but
know that it feels good in your mind, but you don't necessarily know what
yeah,
words, like why I did that. I can't explain it all the way, but this is what makes sense to me. I get that too.
yeah, and yeah, like it's hard to express why like I how tell a story, or why I pick like a certain story with things, but it all begins with I honestly like like all the old basketball series that you saw, all those different illustrations of different basketball players that I personally like handpicked, and I felt was like not only resonates with like my story, but may resonate with other people. It all begins with, it comes out of a place of like fun and love, and I honestly do these illustrations not like I'm not purposely trying to like create contact to kind of create something, but I do it because I genuinely enjoy basketball, and I genuinely enjoy art. And I've always seen like an art form in athleticism, most especially in basketball, just the movements and the athleticism. So when I did like a work like the Pascal Siakam one, or even like the Vince Carter like piece that I did, I wanted to, like, I don't like just posting something and then just kind of like leaving it out there. I want to have like people resonate with it, because I think that is one of the greatest things that an artist could experience, is not only having the opportunity and privilege to share their artwork, but to have the privilege of having people resonate with it and tell you how they resonate with it and what it makes you feel. And that's like just like kind of how I feel about like my work. I enjoy like connecting with people. So whenever I post like a new illustration, especially something that is personal, that is not a project that I was commissioned to do, I try to tie like a story to it. So I kind of look into, I've always known like Pascal Siakam's like, backstory. And I, even with like Vince Carter and things like that, I try to tie like maybe like a personal story into that hopefully some people can resonate, and that I think that most people might resonate. So for instance, the like Vince Carter piece, I tied it to like a personal story of my dad, who's a Filipino immigrant. And when he first came here to Canada, one of the first things he bought was like this small, like this baby sized like purple Raptors hat. And like he would always like point to me and my brother of like Vince Carter, and just we would always watch like games together, and there was just like a lot of happy and like warm memories associated with that. And I wanted to kind of tell a story that is my own story, but a story that maybe people can feel good and kind of feel warm when they read it, and be like, what, like I can resonate with that. Or even if you don't resonate with that, you can kind of like feel the love and kind of feel like the happy memories associated with that story. And then they can tie it with why I chose this particular like basketball player and why I
Right.
portrayed the illustration the way I did, and not just leave it out there just for interpretation. I kind of want to, create conversation in that way.
That's really, really powerful. Like, I don't know. I feel like art's one of those things where it can, for the people that want to appreciate it, like the messages are there if you are taking the time to maybe look or discover or inquire, and the more curious you are, the more you might be able to learn about the artists themselves, about how they go through those processes, how they process their own internal identity and you know journey through life, and then they start to share certain aspects of it. And I don't know if it's I have to bring this up. My designer that works for our agency here at Creative Partner is Filipino, and her sister is as well. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't help but notice there's a similarity between your styles. And you mentioned you're Filipino as well.
Yes,
So
yeah.
even like some of the when you showcase some of your work, how you use shadows for like some of the not the mock-ups, but like the presentation on like social media. And I see some of the stuff Isabel, our designer here, and how she does some of her like work on the side that she does with her and her sister. How they showcase it. There's such a I don't know if it's authentic to the country or to the culture, but there is definitely a similarity between your art and Isabel's art, our designer here, in terms of how you guys have a very strong sense of aesthetic that's not necessarily seen anywhere else. Um, and it feels close to something, but it's not. It's very uniquely Filipina. Like it's just very. I don't know how else to put it, but there's something that connects even what you're doing here and what she does there on the side. That's it's very beautiful. Like I can't help but look at it and be like, wow, there's such a cool similarity here in terms of how it's all coming together. And I don't know, Filipino people have like such great style already. Like if you know, you know. um, so okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about uh, I want to talk a little bit about advocacy, and I feel like you have very strong opinions, and that you are also like a real artist. You have something to say, um, in terms of like using your art for good and making sure that this little business that you're starting up. Because correct me if I'm wrong, you have an Etsy shop, and do you do anything else in terms of um, selling your artwork?
Yeah, so I do have like that Etsy shop. I do have like a website where people can inquire, like I have a contact like form and all that. But recently I've actually been doing less like Etsy related kind of work and more brand related work where I'm working with other different brands and other like small businesses or maybe like bigger brands, where I create like custom illustrations for their business or something just related to their brand. So maybe like a brand activation kind of like illustration or piece. I also do like live like calligraphy, live engraving, which I've done just more recently just because like nature of the pandemic, there was just less like on-site and in-person work. And now the demand is coming back and the demand is back. So I've been kind of like doing that, but I would say like the majority of my work right now is actually working with other brands and other businesses. And actually like just very recently, like was it last week or 2 weekends ago during Mother's Day weekend, I did uh this it's like sorry I'm getting emotional like thinking about this brand deal already, but I did this collaboration with Nike Toronto and WNBA. Yeah, and I did like some custom illustrations for an event that they did at Foot Locker where it was around like 32 custom illustrations, and people were able to get those illustrations heat pressed onto their Nike apparel, so they can customize their Nike apparel. And
Nice.
it was just for that weekend. It was to celebrate the first ever WNBA game in Canada. And
Yes.
so, yeah, it
They
was so
sold out the
recent.
ACC, which was amazing.
Yes, yes, it was amazing. It was incredible, like the atmosphere, just seeing all the little girls and the boys and just everyone just excited to watch like women's basketball is amazing.
So, like, when
Yeah.
you're part of a great, even right here, this is a great segue. You're part of, you get introduced or invited to partner with the WNBA to share a great story about elevating women and elevating the story of women and how women's in sports is being celebrated here in Canada and across the world. Um, that's not the only thing that is going on in the world around us. So how does outside influences or outside causes help affect your art or your perspective? And that's something that you seek out to learn more about, whether it's truth and reconciliation, whether it's Black Lives Mattering, all the different things. I see them on your website, and I'm like, okay, is this something that you seek out to kind of learn more, to kind of be more genuine through your artwork? Is that something that there's a connect there? Is that why it's on your website?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't pretend to be an expert in these matters or like in forms of like activism or advocacy, and it's something that I try to relay as a message throughout my work as well, that I am also learning and growing and that I'm going to make mistakes and I'm still making mistakes. So it is definitely something that I actively seek out when when I hear something on the news or when I hear something from like a friend or just, anything that's going around in the world, that I try my best to absorb, but also educate myself on. Um, whenever I post like a piece relating to, like, for example, maybe like truth or reconciliation, or maybe relating to, like racism against like Black or Indigenous people or like people of color, like I make it like a learning experience for myself as I'm doing like these illustrations. Like for instance, like when I was working with uh one like another brand where she wanted me to illustrate like a woman with bantu knots, and I wanted to educate myself about that. I don't want to just illustrate something that I don't fully understand. And she's a woman of color as well. She's a Black woman, and we were kind of just like learning from each other, and she was like educating me, and I was kind of doing my own research as well about this woman, because I don't want to just create diverse women and you know draw or illustrate a woman in a hijab or or anything else that is a different culture for me, or someone that I don't fully understand, from a different identity I don't understand, and post about that when I don't fully understand it myself. So I try my very best to you know educate myself and do like as much research as I can when posting like artwork or doing anything that has like advocacy to it. And like I do recognize that I will like make mistakes, and that's I don't pretend to be perfect or be someone who's like the face of like activism or anything like that. It's just like something that I'm learning for myself, and that I hope to encourage other people to kind of join me on this learning opportunity to kind of like uplift like our fellow like people and fellow humans and other communities as well, and kind of use my platform and my privilege uh as an opportunity to do that.
That's amazing. I love that it's so authentic to you. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you're not claiming to be an expert. You're not claiming to know everything, but the journey of you learning, the journey of you being curious, also helps you present a more authentic art piece, also helps you present a more realistic art piece, saying, hey, this is not necessarily my story. I don't know the story of wearing a woman wearing a hijab, but I can speak with somebody and learn through them, and I can now share it through my lens, and not say that I am the woman wearing a hijab, but I'm somebody who has interacted with, somebody who has learned about, somebody who can speak to because I've opened myself up to learn more about. And I think those are things that I think in this world that we live today is very, very much needed, where nobody is perfect and you don't have to have all the answers. And it's great to just be curious and to learn and to approach life that way. That helps create more understanding. And the more understanding we have with each other, the better we can tell more meaningful stories, because everyone's kind of listening and not everyone's not necessarily shouting all at the same time. Hopefully that makes sense. That was my little piece
totally
about that.
makes sense.
Yeah. I also, before we have to go, I want to take time and talk a little bit about the business as well. So you mentioned that you have brand deals, you have an Etsy shop, you're being commissioned for certain types of work sometimes. How much of your time is dedicated to this quote unquote business, and when did you make the decision to make the plunge? Be like, okay, this is gonna be like, I guess, another source of income for me.
hmm Um, so I do have a full-time job. I work in government, and it's not like it's not a very easy job, and it takes up a lot of time too. So I try my best to make time like whenever I have breaks. So like my lunch break. So right now it's my lunch break right now, and we're doing this podcast, and I made time for that. And after I'm done work today, I'm going to do like another project that I have due in a couple of weeks. So I try my best to do what I can with like the breaks and kind of like the opportunities I have to work on them. And I just want to preface this by saying that I'm extremely privileged to have a job that is flexible, that I'm able to work from home, but also work in the office, have like a hybrid job. And that's not something that everyone has the leisure of having. And so I recognize that. And as well, like I have another source of income. So my, advice, every time people ask me for advice or like why I decided to start another stream of income or how I make time, I always preface it that because my circumstance, is different, and I just have like a lot of privilege related to that, and a lot of, flexibility related to that not many people can have. For example, like maybe someone who's a nurse who has to be in the hospital or in the clinic at all times.
And you also work really hard
Yeah.
for those privileges too. Let's just throw that in there as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Thank you. But yeah, I just want to preface that because like, sometimes you hear from these podcasts, like, these stories, and like, I feel like I want to be transparent and be like, like I also, I have the opportunity and flexibility, and that's why I do things a certain way that may not work for others.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think you also mentioned like how when I decided that it should be another source of income. I think I mentioned like after like I did my friend's like wedding like CV
Okay, around
chart.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, and also like when the whole reason I started like an Etsy and actually started offering like services as a source of income was like from one of my coworkers and like my full time. Like she was like, why don't you start an Etsy? Like that's a good platform to like start your services and like sell like handmade stuff. And so that's why like I did that, and that's pretty much like where it came from.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. It makes perfect sense. And are you
Yeah.
actively trying to grow this, or is this kind of like, I have more than enough right now? Because you're getting featured in places, you're being asked to come on TV, all that type of stuff. How does that stuff work? How do the people just find you because of social media, and then they're like, oh, this person has a unique style or approach, we should invite them on? Like, are you doing PR? Are you submitting your work to other places?
So it's a lot of things. So for instance, like the Nike thing, they like reached out to me, like Canada Basketball feature, they reached out to me. And I feel like it's not like a simple answer. Like yes, I do PR, yes, I reach out to people, or no, I just like put my work out there. It's all of those things. It's a lot. That's why like when people like ask about this, it's such a multifaceted answer. So, like the first and foremost, I put my work out there, and I do what I love, and it hopefully it reflects through my work and people see that. So like the Canada Basket probably looked at my page and saw a lot of basket related artwork and and maybe asked like if I would be interested in the feature, and Nike did as well. So I'm putting my work out there and just putting myself out there and just telling people about what I do, and agreeing to do like features or do like podcasts or do like collabs. uh it helps a lot as well because it gives you like exposure. And I know there's a lot of advice out there saying like don't take something unless like you're getting paid for it, and that's good advice too, and that totally makes sense. But I also think it's also worth just connecting with people and creating like genuine relationships with other people within like different industries or within your own industry. And then you never know where that's going to go, because like like I think me and you connected because of Jana from Jana Bakes. She follows my work and she mentioned like your podcast, and like you just never know like what making relationships and what connections can do. And it's such a beautiful thing, and it just something beautiful just grows out of it, and different partnerships and different like projects and collaborations can grow out of it. Just like making that genuine connection and putting yourself out there and making those relationships with people.
It's true. People, are in the business of supporting the ones that they know, that they like, that they understand. And so if you can find a network of people that works within, your industry, whatever that is, it can be sales, it can be art, it can be marketing, all that different type of stuff. It helps so much being connected with people, because you never know the opportunities that lie there, and they may be 1 or 2 degrees separated from the initial person that you've met, but then you can end up finding out like I never would have met you without Jenna. I never would have met Jenna without my personal assistant, without Patricia. So it's like there's so many layers of how you and I are on this podcast together. But when I see your art, like I'm like, oh, I'm so thankful that I've been able to appreciate, enjoy, and consume your art, and then B, also to make the connection so that we're able to have further conversations. Now we have a way that we can talk together. If I ever have something that I know that needs to be commissioned, or someone needs something from me, I know I can loop you in. So there's such a powerful, like, I know everything's online now, everything is digital, and what's your Instagram handle, but knowing somebody, or at least being acquainted with somebody, it holds so much more weight than just having a contact in your like follow list on IG, or somebody that you connect with on LinkedIn. And I think for young artists, it's very important to remember that this is still a human to human world. And a lot of even the big things that you see that happen on TV or on social media or on radio and other different places, they still happen because of human connections, and because people know certain people. It's no coincidence that these things happen the way that they do. It's because certain people are in the room who advocate for other people that they know, and then those people are able to have opportunities to be in that room, or to have opportunities to perform or do whatever else it takes. So don't take it as if all you got to do is send 100 emails to try to get a brand deal. Maybe go to an event, maybe go to a networking thing, maybe go to a luncheon or whatever association you're a part of. You might find that there are so many other opportunities there just by networking and not looking for an opportunity, but just saying, hi, this is who I am, this is what I do, I like your style, I like your vibe. That's the best way, I think, for people to kind of grow in their artistry.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Like I'm a part of like a few communities, like Women Who Freelance and some other like communities, and that's how I began my business as well, going to these events and just making like connections with people, and not just like going to these events and just giving out like my business cards that. Like I'm not that, I feel really icky doing that personally. Like I'm just not really good at like selling myself. So I try to, create like genuine like friendships, genuine like relationships. It doesn't feel good if like you're trying to sell something, and it also doesn't feel good for the other person. So I try to always keep, like conscious of that. And honestly, like it's like business and networking is such an art, and I'm still trying to master it myself. So like kudos to people who like are so like slick like that and like so smooth with that. So yeah, but as you said, like, people like Jenna, like I'm so grateful to meet like her and to meet like other people and to meet yourself, like just to make these relationships with people. Like you never know where these relationships will like blossom into. And so I'm always just grateful for like all of these and anyone who has ever given me an opportunity or like shouted me out or anything.
Awesome. Okay, I would love for people to know where they can find you, where they can see your work. Let them know about your Etsy shop, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. So it's Inkscript, so INKSCRPT, no extra I at the end. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and my website, all like Inkscript. TikTok, I'm still trying to figure that out. So if you go on it, please don't judge. Like I literally, like you'll probably notice that I literally use the same videos as I do on Instagram, but it's because I haven't figured it out. But like we're all here. We're all, yeah.
Yes, we're all learning.
Exactly.
100%. Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening. This has been the More Life Podcast. I've been Bart. Peace out.